Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Boy, we have a nice air mass coming across much of the central and eastern U.S. A hint of fall, but we know that that's a little early. There's still some heat building, and there still are some parts of the country that are pretty hot. Let's take a look at all this. First of all, this is the 3 o'clock temperatures across the country, and it is clear to see that we have some very cool air, including a 54-degree reading in Pittsburgh, PA. Temperatures only in the upper 60s across much of Maine and across almost all of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, only barely reaching 70 from Sioux Falls over to Chicago and around the Detroit area. And this cool air mass stretches all the way down to the southern Appalachians, not quite getting to Atlanta, but it is cooler in those areas. There are a couple of 90s down in the south, but the hottest weather is basically here and here across the country. We'll take a quick look at that, and I'll just show you these are excessive heat warnings here, and these are heat advisories, kind of in that orange color. And you're seeing some interior readings in Washington getting up close to 100 degrees, but that's the exception, not the rule. Most of the country is enjoying a very cool weather pattern. So what is causing that? Let's take a look at the visible satellite loop on this Monday afternoon. And as the opening slide suggested, there's a big area of cool air here. And you can kind of see right here is where a little bit of a rain slide is going to be setting up over the next 5 days, really. We're already starting to see some of those clouds stream in on the back side of this feature. This is an upper level low that's sitting northeast of the Great Lakes, and for this time of year, it's a little unseasonal. So in other words, these lines that determine where the wind's going to flow are dipping down fairly far to the south for August. Usually in summer, we'll see much more of this, which is an upper level ridge, either stretched out flatly across all of the southern U.S. or occasionally almost a reversal of what you're seeing on the map right now. Very interesting. Take a look at the surface map, and there's a high pressure system centered up over the Dakotas. This is the center of that Canadian cool air mass on this Monday afternoon, with the front from New York City all down to the Florida Panhandle, stretching through northern Texas and ending up in Colorado. So what impact is going to have on temperature? Well, long-lasting one, it appears, because the forecast for Tuesday, the bluish colors and greenish colors are departures below normal. So just about all of the country is below normal except for Florida, and even they're not that much above normal. Neither is Louisiana and that hot spot I mentioned up in the northwest. But the blue colors here, these dark blues, are indicating readings anywhere from minus 18 to minus 22 degrees below what is normally seen this time of year. So in other words, in Kansas and Oklahoma, it'd be common to see 90s, maybe almost 100 degrees in some of those areas. They'll have highs tomorrow. Oklahoma City 73 degrees, Dodge 71, Chicago a very pleasant 72 degrees, and even in places like Atlanta 82 degrees, still a little bit cool for this time of year. Take a look at Thursday. This shrinks a little bit. Some heat returning to Texas, nothing real excessive. Speaking of excessive, this is calming down in the northwest a little bit as we go through the rest of this work week, and Florida is pretty typical. Again, the shading is not really that far above normal, but this is still pretty interesting. I live in Springfield. The high temperature on Thursday, 69 degrees. That's pretty cool considering we're still in August. And even when we move ahead to Saturday, still a large chunk of the country showing a greenish-blue color. That means below normal, with us here in Springfield only getting to 80, still 72, 73 degrees around, actually at 78 in Chicago. A little warm in the northwest, but again, a lot of times the patterns do that. If it is cool in the east, it is usually warm in the west. So you get a high pressure, low pressure kind of scenario, or sometimes it's reversed. You get a low there and a high there with the flow in between them. Either way, usually there's a balancing act, and that's starting to show itself up a little bit. Now, if we take a look at the next 6 to 10 days, this goes all the way out to this coming Sunday, so a week from yesterday, all the way through Thursday of next week, still a pretty high confidence that the Central Plains and much of the eastern seaboard, Carolinas, Virginia, pretty high confidence, 70% confidence that that area will be below normal. Well, the tropics are active, but in no way are they affecting the mainland portion of the U.S., either in the Atlantic, where Fernand is right there, and its forecast track is right there. And Juliet, which is doing what a lot of these storms in the Pacific do. They either move due west or maybe they curve up to the northwest, but rarely do they have any impact in this area. Every once in a while they do. They'll feed moisture down into the southwestern U.S. and kind of a modified, kind of an enhanced monsoonal kind of situation there. Take a quick look at the visible satellite loop for Fernand. You can see the swirl right there. Very disorganized, though, and practically no convection, meaning the bright tops like right here in the center of this storm. They're all on the peripheral, so this storm is really not going to be a big deal. And even if it were to strengthen, which it isn't, it's going to stay at tropical storm status. That's what the S's mean right there. And then go to a depression staying well out over the Atlantic, and not any land masses that I'm aware of out there. So how are we doing so far this season? Well, we have crossed up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 storms. Gabrielle will be the next one. And I have to tell you, on the 7-day forecast, there is nothing that the National Hurricane Center is looking at for the Atlantic. So it's going to be a while if we get a named storm. This is a season where there's a 50% chance, confidence level, probability of above normal. And so the named storms, 13 to 18 is what they're forecasting. So we have, what did I say, 6 so far. But I need to emphasize it's still early in the season. Hurricanes 5 to 9, we've had 1 so far. The peak of the season is right around September 11th, right in through there. So we are just now getting into the final, let's say, 2 weeks before the peak hits. And then you can still get pretty good storms well into the early part of October. And it's all, as you know, with weather patterns, it's just not a continuous everyday hurricane threat, no more than you would usually have continuous patterns of severe weather or flooding. But it comes and goes. It hits, and then it hits for several days in a row, and then it goes away for a long period of time, then comes back. So the Atlantic definitely not done probably firing off with tropical storms and hurricanes. Let's come back to this rain slide idea. So we have monsoonal rains in Southern California and Arizona, just to get that out of the way, and then Sierra Nevada. We have a slight risk. That means a slight risk, at least a 15% chance of flash flood guidance within 25 miles of a point. Then this is really what I was talking about. This right here, this corridor from Colorado, northern New Mexico, east, southeast through Oklahoma, parts of Kansas, Arkansas, and eventually into Missouri. This is for today through tonight, through 12Z tomorrow, which will be 7 a.m. Then let's look at just keep looking at this. So it's the same product. Now we'll go to Tuesday. Same kind of belt right there. That's why I was emphasizing that so much. On Wednesday, same belt right there. Also in Idaho. On Thursday, guess what? Same belt right there. Same portion of Colorado. Again, it's not really going up to the moderate and high risk yet. I wouldn't expect that for this many days out, but there's certainly room for that to happen, I think, in some areas. Take a look at the advisories so far. Now, flood watches are not going to be issued well out in advance, but they are going to take care of the next 24 to 48 hours. So there is a flood watch in effect for Oklahoma City and much of the lesser populated areas up to the north and west of Oklahoma City, then a pretty good chunk of Colorado, down in southern Arizona, these areas that were all under the slight risk, basically. Let's take a look at the next 2 days in terms of what the forecast is going to be for precipitation. We're seeing a 2-inch total showing up in eastern Oklahoma. I think this is Tulsa, 1.5 right here, and also some of that activity out here in New Mexico and parts of Colorado. These are not real excessive, especially if it's a 2-day accumulation of rain. But I do want to show you that over the next 5 days, that there is a 4-inch bullseye right there, right around Emporia, Kansas, I guess you would say, stretching from Kansas all the way down into Little Rock and covering almost all of Arkansas. So that's pretty good rains. And again, patches of it in Colorado, as you saw, parts of it in Idaho, but this is certainly the heaviest rain batch that is in the forecast. And if we go again to the 6 to 10 day forecast, last graphic of the day, that's 6 days from now, this coming Sunday through Thursday of next week. Still a pretty high area of precipitation in Texas, Oklahoma, and parts of Kansas, which much of the northeastern U.S. by that time looking a little drier. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.